bottom right-hand side of the map. The blue Terran player from Team Liquid on that upper side of the bracket. He is Cure! Loving all of the signs out there, loving the cheers, loving the fans, getting excited and amped for the series, and I am also amped for the series Zombie Cup. I do want to actually bring it back really quickly as we get the game starting off with a nice early pool.
Yeah.
Is that Dark did play exactly one TVZ series this event. It was against Spirit, and it was not on the main stage, so I am very curious. Did Kira go back and look at Winter StarCraft's VODs and see the cast of that particular series? Did he go back and do the investigation and see what Dark has been doing?
Yeah, if not him, perhaps one of his teammates as well. Obviously not Clem, who's going to have to, you know, save his own TVC strategies and whatnot. But nonetheless, hopefully getting some help and hopefully having that time to look at it, because Spirit actually really brought it to Dark. I called it as one of the potential upsides of the tournament, and it actually only almost ended up happening. Really long games, really interesting games, and Spirit might have even had more of a chance to take down Dark if he hadn't had his own little slip up there on the mental game, kind of forgetting a base for a little bit. We've got some really interesting openers though, right off the bat, not just your standard one racks versus that hatch pool gas. We do have Dark going for an early pool. Sixlings are on the way, but Cure, it looks like he was really greedy. A command center first can be labeled as such, certainly, but in that weird effect that can sometimes happen in StarCraft 2, the command center finishes by the time the lings are over. But the weirder thing about this is that forward-placed wall, which isn't going to be complete anytime soon. So while the command center definitely will finish on time, turn into orbital at the same time as the main, the tricky part is actually keeping those SCVs mining as the Sixlings just have full run of the main and natural.
Yeah, you really don't have any way to kind of pincer those Zerglings in, to have some full wall in, to either lock them in or lock them out. Lings actually chasing the SCVs outside of the natural
my good lord.
And now, a third command center that was started up gets scouted. I cannot even imagine. Or actually, oh, no, he still is building both of those command centers right now, right?
No, that's his third. That is actually his third.
I'm like, wait a second. Did he, like, cancel the natural at some point? I missed this. I'm like, this is unreal.
No.
But no, this is the most greedy play ever.
This is actually insane. So obviously Dark was doesn't always go for a pool first, right? We know him as an aggressive Zerg, but a lot of the times those pool first, they're basically out of the meta, a lot of it. And so Dark gets in here and is like, wow, you were greedy with that command center first. Wow, you were insanely greedy with that third command center after single barracks, and it would be lovely to do something about it. But in that weird world, again, it's like, well, you got that army unit better, right? You got it faster, right? Well, once the wall is complete, you can only do so much with the bare bones Zerg units unless you want to add a Baneling Nest and actually break this wall while Dark is thinking there's not the time to do so. You're not actually punishing this fast third CC. Cure, with some insane greed, gets away with it, had to do the little runaround game with the SCVs, sure, but now has that wall up, has the Reaper on the side of the map, checking to make sure it's not a Baneling bust, and Cure can do all of his build to his heart's content.
Absolutely. I mean, even if you did want to try and double down and go for that kind of all-in play or something, remember, it's when you go for that early pool play, you're also foregoing your gas guys there for a bit, so you don't have Zergling speed. You don't have all that early gas that would normally go into those things, so it already makes it such an awkward decision to make, and I actually can't blame all for the decision he's going for right now, which is, first of all, to run the Lings in at the absolute perfect moment. How does Dark know?
That was a good check there. The Overlord drew out, at the very least, the Cyclone away, but also was able to see that the structures had lifted up, was looking for that really awkward timing. Now, again, you're up against a 3CC build, right? So a couple of SCVs, a little bit of a delay on a barracks. Is that really going to be enough? Do you say that now I punish that third CC? I don't think so. But you're basically hoping that first it's a couple of SCVs not mining, then it's a couple of SCVs dead. Then I know exactly what his follow-up is because I got the scout into the main base so I can time out my drones versus my Ling production or Roach production, which Dark does favor a lot of Roach games, but I'm not sure he's going to play it here, as we do just have more drones on the way. The Overlord does finally fall. That's the only one that Dark has on Cure's side of the map, but Cure, with this build order that Dark's been able to see, there's only really one direction that he can push it. That is going into Bio, that is going into a greedy 3CC, and that is going to be Medivacs being the real first pressure that Dark has to seriously consider. Cyclones are annoying, I think we all know that, and Hellions are actually on the way too. But Dark wants to try and minimize the amount of army that he makes to maximize those drones. So he'd actually love to deal with this ASAP, but you can see Cyclones, man. They're freaking annoying.
Yeah, they really are, and I think especially if the Zerg player is trying to play a little bit greedier, they aren't making a ton of lings. I mean, this is a fair number of lings if he can get the surround, and he does to find the surround on 2 of the Cyclones. Third Cyclone goes down, the Hellion. Even that may end up actually falling over here if these lings manage to get the right wraparound, but that already shuts down all of that little bit of pressure play Akira had going out on the map.
No, exactly. That's, I think, is still a big deal. Again, pointing out how Dark is basically recovering up against this extremely greedy build by making everything else in this game go his way as much as possible. The full surround of the Cyclones, the demolishing of the Hellion pressure, the Viking will probably not get that many Overlords either, so far on 0. It was Cyclone that killed that one Overlord. And Dark still probably doesn't feel maybe super comfortable in this game. His drone count's really never been that far ahead, only recently, in fact, getting actually ahead of Cures. But everything from the first, oh, okay, you got your build and I couldn't punish it, has gone Dark's way.
No, absolutely. And as we get to go into the movement where the medevacs are going to be making their way across the map, they're going to be trying to put on little bits of pressure over here with the first little bit of stim finishing up. Dark is saying, no, it's actually still my time to shine. He's still going to try and threaten around with ling drops and try and see if he can just defend. Mostly it looks like with probably Queens back at home.
Yeah, well, that's what you want to be basing a lot of your defense on. You want to be pumping out just drones as many as possible. But this little Marine hit squad, prior to 1-1, prior to combat shields, is still going to give Cure a little bit of that scouting and a little bit of that pressure. Dark is finally getting to more drones. There it is. 1-1 is going to be a little slower than Cure's, and he is going to add on that still fairly quick infestation pit. You know, we did see a lot of quick infestation pits, quick greed from Dark in his series versus Spirit, but I think with the way that this game is open, he's had to change a little bit. But I still love seeing the infestation pit with Dark, and I still love seeing Burrow, especially on the way here for our Zerg.
Yeah, it seems to be a stylistic preference for him to try and go for that, even with the earlier opening that maybe delays it compared to some of his other games. It still is really cool to see that Dark prefers that, but we'll see what he ends up using that for a little bit later on, as Infestation Pit usually is going to lead into that hive, but the way that he's used that in different series or games has been different for sure. Now this is a very interesting slow Baneling run by into the mineral line. But again, you need at least 2 of those Banelings to connect with all of those SCVs to actually get the big connections, and that really wasn't the damage he was looking for there.
No, not exactly. Kira is doing his Terran things, getting some drops out, very comfortable back at home on 3CC. I do want to highlight what exactly Kira is doing at this point. First, the insistent Hellion production has actually kind of worked out regardless of their inability to be offensive. They still helped out with dealing with some of these Ling run bys, and still helpful as far as the future goes into turning into Hellbats. But it's no second factory, it's no Widow Mines, and it's no tanks. Cure is adding on a lot of bio with potential Hellbat addition to have a very mobile, very momentum-based fight, constant aggression, constant action, and hopefully the momentum turns so much into his favor that he can snowball to victory. Certainly hasn't happened yet. Dark continuing to try with these run-bys, but again, those Hellions, they're still so helpful even as we get to 8-9 minutes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially even those Hellions being helpful with any of the run-by attempts later on when he does decide to finally go for that big push-out. If he decides to leave them at home, we've seen that be a really effective tactic against Zerg players who like doing run-bys, which I think we've already seen Dark at least attempt 5 or 6 run-bys in the course of this 8-minute or 9-minute game.
Yeah, you're including everything that happened in the very early stages. Kira is finally going to find a big reward with his medevac drops. That hatchery is a goner, and Dark just has to accept that. Also will supply block Dark. 4 Overlords are on the way, and there's no big battle incoming, but nonetheless, a good snag there from Cure, who has managed to keep both drops alive, of course, as well, looking to stop that creep from getting all over the place. It is starting to really get quite nice through the middle of the map, the halfway point, but if Cure's ever going to push through the midpoint, then does that matter? I think it still would, but more importantly, it's where Cure wants to actually send his troops, and that does appear to be the north, where his drop was just cleaned up. But now that the army's there, it's almost like an okay timing. It's a preferable timing if you're going to lose that drop.
Yeah, and this timing is actually going to line up really, really well with 2-2 finishing up, and the +2 Carapace upgrade didn't start for a very long time there for Dark.
Yeah.
He had the double even Tome here and got up the 1-1 upgrades, but then 2-2 didn't quite start. He just started up the melee upgrade instead.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. That could be a problem as we have Dark now committing more lings to the counterattack, but up against Hellbats in 2-2 bio, I don't think it's going to do a whole lot. Meanwhile, Dark is once again forced to give up a base. This time, it is a very important base, and Dark needs to get some amazing Baneling hits, but the Marauders are on the front line. Kira is going to be off of creep if he pulls back, and Dark is realizing not much is going his way this time.
No, definitely getting out microed over here by Cure's defensive setup. It snipes off the hatchery, and now Dark suddenly, maybe sitting on Hive Tech, may have Ultras coming out with chitinous plating, but it's on a, do we even call it 3 base economy? 10 minutes into the game, it's like 2.5, 1.5 base economy.
Yeah, surprisingly enough, there's still a red arrow leaning his way, but obviously at a 30 supply deficit, that's not quite enough. You want to have a 2,000, 1,000 bank where you're pumping out 8 Ultras at once. That's the Zerg dream, right? Slow trickling in Ultras, especially against someone who already has a high amount of Marauders with this style, isn't actually the turning point that it can be if it was coming along against Marine Tank, right? Then it's a real turning point. This time, I wouldn't say so. So even though Ghosts are what we often think of as that anti-Ultra measure, and they certainly are, so of course Cure will grab it, the high Marauder count and the micro that we see displayed by Cure is going to do a lot, especially as Dark is on the back foot.
Yeah, and I mean, to tie that in, also the fact that +3 weapons is going to be finishing up soon for Cure, whereas Dark is still just lagging behind and only just now finishing up his own +2 armor. He's also going to be an armor upgrade behind. Those Ultras are going to be even less effective than they normally would be in a tied-up upgrade situation. Liberator harassment is going to be really annoying for Dark to deal with as well, but Cure is rotating around to the north side and getting ready to continue on with the aggression.
Going to have +3 attack finishing up in the next 40 seconds. He's already got his 4th command center on location, building into a planetary, and looking to get a 5th. Once again, we're dealing with these run-bys to the best of his abilities. Lifted supply depots and bio tucked into a mineral line. The Lings will not find a large amount of success. So those are cracklings. They jump on top of the planetary. There could be something over there. One Ultra helping a substantial amount against the drop, and the other drop also being cleaned up. The Lings, they didn't actually go for the planetary. They ended up finding a ball of bio that was not well set up to deal with that, and all of a sudden, Cure's supply is in the dumpster.
Yeah, I take back everything I said about that Ultraless zombie grub. It actually held its own pretty gosh darn well against Pure Marines there. Command Center gets sniped off. That's a kill, not a cancel. So 400 resources down the drain, and Dark is finding a lot of these wins where suddenly the supply count that he was down, I want to say like 30 or so, maybe a minute ago, suddenly not looking nearly as bad.
Yeah, Cure does finally get a moment of breath to take here, and so he will rebuild his SCV counts, he will rebuild his bio counts, and he once again is at a stable supply, but it was the first time in 12 minutes that Dark had a decent looking supply lead for a Zerg player, and I feel like that's just Dark's will coming into effect. This game has been difficult, I think, for any Zerg player looking at it. I can't believe this guy got away with 3 CC, really fast engineering bays, and applied so much pressure that I lost a 5th and a 4th, but then Dark's willpower is like, nope, something's going to work for me. Ling run-by is going to work. I'm going to find you off kilter. And Cure definitely did get bothered by it. That's why he didn't go around canceling that 5th command center. But he's back on the momentum. He's back on the drops, and that is starting to do the damage once again. So a brief little moment there for Dark to feel good about this game, and then back into trying to take down a late-game Terran.
Yep. Dark, on the other hand, is going to be adding on not only 2 Vipers, but also a handful of Infestors, as he had fired up 1 initially, but a couple more are going to be added on in. And we have definitely seen Dark, and I mean, even just a lot of Zergs, even at this event, find some massive fungals that really change the tide of a battle.
Yeah.
So if Dark, he's already in an okay-ish position at this point, find a good fungal, that really, really can set the pace of this game, especially since, I mean, this isn't really a siege tank-based army that the blinding clouds and stuff are going to be the big play factor here. I feel like big fungals, that's going to be the money magic here.
Exactly, and I think personally, this is certainly the bias coming in. I think Dark's the best with Infestors. He's always been one of the more insistent players of the Zerg race to actually go to Infestors, and sometimes that's because he's also more often going for Roaches, but still, I feel like he always has the ability to make a comeback happen. Even before the fungal got changed to be automatic with the Infestors, he was still pushing that. So now it's just even better for him, and he'll be looking for the juicy fungals, no doubt, but Cure has taken to be a little more on the defensive side. He does have some drops, some harassment, as Liberator does cause some problems. But with the Ghost out and more bases needing to be grabbed by the Terran, Dark is now going to be all on the defensive. We do have a push now, but it's not that tank-based competition that you were talking about, and that fungal is waiting to hit the big ball of bio. Not gonna happen. Good scan there, catches the Creep Tumors and the Infestor.
Yeah, Parasitic Bomb does get thrown out at the last second on some of the medevacs, and a massive Ling Ultra run by over to the south side of this third base. Gonna pull the entire army down to the south side as well. Cure absolutely has to respect the heck out of this, but funny enough, the Lings, a couple of them go down, but actually all the Banelings get preserved, so Dark finding some really not super significant damage there, but he shuts down the mining for a bit, and it's a very low-cost bit of damage.
He got value for sure. He pulled back the army too, so he's making sure that Kieran never feels comfortable just doing a push out, like line in the sand, you come to my ghost, ready to snipe you. That's never going to look very pretty, so it's very important that Dark gets those jabs. Somehow that drone escaped certain death, and the drop will continue. But we got ourselves our first nuke for day number 3. It is on the way. The ghosts are ready, and we are here to play some substantially late game TVZ by the looks of it, as both of their supply is still looking solid. Both of their positions are now certainly winnable, and Cure is going to start sending some ghosty boys around for nukes.
Yeah, and I have no doubt in Cure's late game abilities in TVZ, but I also can definitely say, even in Dark Series versus Spirit, he played a long late game 28-minute TVZ. He looked immaculate in a lot of it. He was just able to gradually play these little trading games and eventually choke out Spirit in that series. I am going to be so impressed if Cure can manage to make it work against Dark. Dark looked so good in that series when he was facing against Spirit, who I think is actually really good at late game TVZ.
And it is always amazing to think about Dark when, we have some of his opinions on things. And he has said, I don't actually like playing late game that much, but I seem to always be pushed towards it, And then he'll be like, oh, woe is me, I'm getting older, my hands are slower, blah, blah, blah. And then he plays some of the most amazing late game. And you're like,
you made me do this.
Yeah.
You brought us here.
He's definitely doing that. And then he gets more angry. Right,
Yeah.
he's like, you made me do this. Is he like B2? Yeah.
I'm just cleaning up your mess now.
But Dark is amazing, but Cure is also so spectacular in this late game position. All those Korean Terrans really, having to play out this game when there was the meta where it was all 6-7 bases and ghost defense. They have the practice, that's for sure. Even though some of the mid games have changed a little bit and been a little more action-packed, the late game is still something that Cure has practiced a ton, and he is set up for it. He's really got everything going that a Terran would need. 5th base trying to turn into a 6th now, actually. He's got the building armor on the way. I think high-spec auto-tracking might already be done. And then Cure, I'm waiting for that ghost to go out and get a nuke. I really want to see it.
I'm so pumped for this zombie grab. This is game number 1 of our day number 3. This is how we get to start the day. Only going to be uphill, or I guess, uphill, downhill. I don't know what's better in this situation.
It's only going to get better.
It's only going to get better from here, I guess, yeah. As we do have even, a bunch more command centers and everything being added on here, as Kieran knows, he needs to have scans available against Dark, because that is something, again, Dark, even throughout all the little bit of talking that we've been doing for the last 2 minutes as they've been kind of moving around their army, he has had these infestors moving around, and yes, it seems like they haven't truly fully engaged on with their armies for a little bit, as we do have the first nuke coming out, but those infestors are lurking around, always looking for an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, you do want to go ahead and get to a lower SEV count. That is the way that this dynamic goes, right? Cure wants to have a higher army supply to then hopefully have a one big punch to end the game against Dark as the Zerg player who is looking to remax a couple of times or get the most amazing fungal parasitic bomb on the medevacs as well.
Another fungal to follow it up. Every single medevac goes down, and Cure's army supply plummets. A lot of that army supply that's there right now is just in production, and almost thank God that it's in production, because he has to deal with the Nidus Worm at his production now.
I think that was the distraction that led to that big ball of bio getting fungaled like that. Dark with the 1-2 punch. Look over here while the fungal goes down. Now the Banelings crash into that 5th base planetary and take it down. Dark with a humongous mineral bank is struggling on the gas. Seemingly, he just built a ton of Corruptors, I believe, preparing for that Broodlord transition. He doesn't have the gas to actually build the Broodlords, though, and he doesn't have a Greater Spire, actually, so I mean, he has 17 Corruptors going on 23, in which they'll be just good for dealing with the Liberators, I guess. I actually don't think he needed this money.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, he already killed all the medevacs. I don't even think he's going to find value in killing those at this point.
That's actually an insane amount of Corruptors. I wonder if that's a mistake. We will see what he does with them. They certainly will take down the medevacs, and the Parasitic Bomb will not. They're going to go ahead and look at that planetary, and they can take it down themselves. Kira is trying to rebound from the Colossal Mistake versus the Spellcaster, and he is on the rebound. He saves that now 5th base over to the right side. Nidus Worm in the main isn't taken care of, but it also has nothing in it, and their supplies have once again gotten maxed out.
StarCraft is so often a game of momentum. I have to wonder if the Corruptor transition that is a little bit strange over here in this situation for Dark, if he's giving up so much of his momentum, because you see, Dark needs a way to deal with this army, and suddenly all of those advantages he was garnering for himself, it's so difficult to actually take advantage of it. He loses a hatchery in the top right. The Nidus Worm is getting a significant amount of damage in the main base, but to what end? There's just a ton of Corruptors with no greater Spire.
There's 20 Corruptors on the field. They'll take down the 3 Medivacs, which is a little low here as we're entering into base rate territory, but then will be enough to help out. All the ghosts back at home makes us look really weird as the fight goes. So many overstimmed bio units, but there's just nothing on the ground for Dark.
What do you do from here? He's still so close to max out. He can barely actually make units because the Corruptors are soaking up so much supply. Do you kill your own Corruptors here? Like, what is the correct answer?
I guess they're going to be overstepped anyways. All it's going to take is a little ling nibble for these Marines to die. You can't out-repair the Corruptors here. That's going down. Their supplies are both struggling. It's Dark with a huge mineral bank, but pure Marine, even against injured Marines, is still a questionable fight to take in the late game.
I guess so, but you know what? If there's no Medivacs to heal them up, because the Corruptors are killing every single one that pops out, maybe he can make some dark magic happen. But, oh man, Cure, he is going to have still a significant size army. And yes, a lot of it's weakened up, but those ghosts are still alive. A handful of that bio is still fairly healthy. And if he just pushes down into this bottom left-hand side, he's going to be able to knock out quite a few bases that I don't know if Dark actually has enough to contest with just yet.
And now the ghosts are part of the fight, right? When the Corruptors come in, like, we'll just take care of everything on the sky, won't we? Snipes are going to obliterate them, and he won't be able to remake a huge army as Dark, as again, that gas is the main problem. A huge army of Lings doesn't want to go up against. How many ghosts do we have here, actually? We got 12. That's a good number, plus all the bio that is injured, but alive. Here comes the Zerg Horde. Is it going to be enough? It wraps around the ghost, allowing the Ultras to chop down, and the Marines have no place to run. They've got no healing, and the ghosts cannot get their snipes. Dark is going to clean up the entire army, and with that cleanup, probably take the game.
Your logic is invalid in the face of Dark. He does not care. He is going to obliterate most of this army. 2 ghosts are finally going to start to avenge some of their fallen brethren, but the Corruptors are now going to go uncontested with so many of the ghosts sniped off. They can just obliterate any of these command centers, and Cure is not in a position where he can afford to keep giving up even more of his economy.
It really doesn't sound like it's the logical conclusion to a TVC. 20 Corruptors taking out all the Medivacs, and then the lack of Medivac energy and mobility, you're not dropping around everywhere without Medivacs, right? Ends up taking down the Terran. If Cure was able to take more of a hardline stance and have his ghost prepared for the snipes, that looks very, very different. A couple of Widow Mines pop off on the Lings, his bio army doesn't get surrounded, and then there's so much chaos and death on the side of the Zerg. But as that went down, the jump was effective, and now Cure is once again trying to recover from a bad fight, but he does not have the resources to do so quickly.
It's going to be absolute madness here for Cure if he's able to somehow even mount a defense. Forget a comeback, a mounted defense over here is going to be pretty tough, but Lings are going to be storming on into a handful of the bio that don't have any Medivacs to heal on up. The Infestor looks like it's very close to a fungal, maybe doesn't quite have enough, and Widow Mines are going to be able to find a little bit of damage over here in the bottom left, but it's a little bit of damage for a dead orbital.
And it's not like he can lift it, of course.
Yeah.
The production is also going to be camped potentially by these Corruptors. A Planetary holding strong against a lone Ultra. But what about the natural? What about your production? Dark is looking to end game number 1 with 20 Corruptors flying in the sky. And Cure is probably in a little bit of disbelief. He got the 3CC opener. He got the great start to this game. He even got Dark's 4th base kill to the mid-game. And yet here he is, down 80 supply on his last few units.
Bending reality, the villain of the Zerg player, Dark, does not care what your logic says. He is going to try and clean up all of this army. And I have to believe at this point, it is just disbelief here for Cure because he absolutely knows how bad of a situation he's in. He is finally going to tap out, and Dark claims game number 1. The plot armor is too thick.
Yeah, apparently. Perhaps destined to go to the finals. Cure, he had such a fabulous opener. His mid-game play was exactly what you needed. He was in a grand position to even still do a push to end the game before it got to more of that defensive turtle. But every time it seemed like Cure was going to get that one great shot, it was Dark able to hold on. Again, his willpower seemingly forcing those Lings to really strike at the exact moment that would maximize the damage as far as the actual kill on the bio, but then as far as Cure being distracted for that huge fungal as well on the Nidus Worm. Dark is just too good. It seems like he's got a little bit of the Maru effect sometimes, where even if you're ahead against the guy, you're actually even.
It must be so frustrating to start off the series that way as Cure, because frankly, you can look at these replays, and while there are a lot of highlights there for Dark, this is another example of how Cure was actually doing a phenomenal job in this game. It's not even just the opening. He was finding really great exchanges. He was finding patchery snipes and everything. But Dark, with the Money Fungal that was paired with a Nidus Worm that then went straight into the counterattack over at the other location with the Ultras, he was able to find so much damage in the span of just a few seconds. You cannot let your guard down around him.
This battle was so pivotal as well. I mean, the fact is, like, the jump of the Zerg, even off of creep, they still jump on top of the Terran. The Terran has to split. The Ghosts aren't prepared to snipe. That is the really effective maneuver. If Cure had all of that army in a ball, which is not great against Fungals or Banelings, of course, but it is great against a flood of Lings and Ultras, the snipes are there. So many of those Ghosts were not sniping. They still had so much energy, and it would have been tremendously different if the Ultras were gone and the Bio had a wall, flanks or whatever, against those Lings. Cure absolutely would have had a chance in this game. He had so many chances actually in that game, and it almost feels like it is theft from Dark as we do spawn on top of him in the top right of Radisset Station for the team DKZ. He is the Red Zerg, Dark.
Down here on the bottom left-hand side of the map, in the blue, we have the blue Terran player from Team Liquid. Down but not out, he is Cure! Zombie Grub, one of my favorite things when we have games from Dark is when, after the tournament finishes up, people look at those games, they look at those replays, and they say, all right, so how do I learn how to play from as Dark? How do I learn how to make these strategic decisions? And I just have this image in my head of a meme where it's just the unit counting station, and it's just a bunch of bio, and it's like, what units do I make against these Marines, Marauders, Ghosts? And it's just 22 Corruptors.
that was crazy, man. I don't know if that actually is his brilliant finishing move nowadays, but it didn't seem like it was entirely solid. It worked out fine in that particular game, but I think if it wasn't combined with some earlier epic moments, like the fungal parasitic bomb that even got the medevac count decimated in the first place, then I wonder if that really would have been enough, as Dark would have had so much supply that even if they took down, let's say, 8 medevacs, would have been a nice count to start with, then so much of the bio would have been left over, even if it was injured, but we just never really had that perfect scenario. Cure was always a little overstimmed, or he was always forced to micro around the units as opposed to make a stand, and the Corruptors ended up doing everything they needed and more, I suppose, as they also had the intimidation factor. Look at me, I'm winning with like 16 Corruptors. Like,
yeah, and to be very clear, it's not weird to make those Corruptors, because the Corruptors do have a lot of value. They snipe off not only the medevacs, if they hadn't already died to the fungal growth parasitic bomb combo, but even just the Liberator cannon. It makes a lot of sense to have those Corruptors available to knock out the Liberators, because you have those Ultras, you want to get the value from them. It's just the sheer number of them. And we were talking about this before, it's just kind of this momentum-based thing where you're doing a lot of damage, you're in this really, really good driver's seat in the game, and suddenly your Corruptors kind of halt a bit of that momentum. And you saw that was the moment where Cure started to snipe out factories.
Yeah.
He started firing back, and it seemed like it was such a strange moment there.
Yeah, and again, if it was one of those situations where we saw the Terran take a stand, defensively especially, it's not like even a large amount of Corruptors is necessarily a bright idea to snipe a Liberator. Not if it's protected by missile turrets and Ghosts, right? Because as soon as you try to retreat after sniping a couple of Liberators, the Ghost snipes go down. But yeah, you're right. Of course, Corruptors are going to be found in the late game to deal with some Liberators. It was just the effect of having not many Liberators to begin with. It seemed like, it was the next thing that was going to happen. You needed to now worry about the Liberator turtly defense of the Terran, but we're actually not kind of there yet. And even if we were getting there, you think he would trickle in 10 Corruptors first, then realize he needed more, not go immediately into 22. But we do have another command center first, guys, from Terran, from Cure, and it does have now a third CC behind it. It is Radisset Station, and it is a very macro-based map, and it looks like neither player is deterred from the idea that either one of them could get aggressive.
No, absolutely not. We do have a couple of Cyclones starting on up just for now, and going back to the earlier game that we had, game number 1, we did have a couple of Cyclones make their way on the map, and we were talking about how they can be a nice little annoying presence, especially if a Zerg player, for example, is playing greedy or something. But Dark was able to get an immediate jump in onto those Cyclones. He immediately shut those down with the Lings, really caught Kure off guard. I'm really hoping, just for Kure's sake, that we can get to see him utilize those Cyclones a little bit better for some of the early game utility they oftentimes have. And this is certainly not a great example of it as Overlord survives.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah.
There was so many moments where Kure still had the lead, I would say. When I saw the 4th base go down, I actually was like, I think at the end of the day, Dark still ended up so behind from the openers. But then he got the fungal, and then, you know, he got the successful distraction, and then he finally got all of his bases that he would need. So it was like it didn't actually matter, even though he was looking like he was going to be on the ropes. He just has an amazing ability to turn a lot of these games around. So whether or not Kure is more successful with the Hellion Cyclone isn't even the problem, right? Like, that was nice for Dark, but it wasn't enough. It's that Kure needs to actually, you know, get on top of one of these bases in the forward position, kill it, and then actually cut the head off the snake, not let it wiggle around there and finally come back.
No, absolutely not. We do see the first-person perspective for both of these players. And taking a nice, chill, easy game because they know that things will definitely be ramping up a little bit later on as the Hellions and the Cyclones, the Cellions, you could say. I guess if you really want to merge those together, are going to be poking forward. But actually, a couple more Cyclones being made there for Kure. So going up to a count of 4 now. It's always really fun to see where different Terran players have kind of landed on the early game Cyclone pressure. Like, when do you stop? Where do you stop on all those Cyclone production?
Yeah, it seems to be sometimes very much just an opener, and other times, like, you know, I think I'm going to kind of weigh with something a little bit more here. But for this, it's going to look for maybe a couple of queens and mostly a pushback on the creep, which really comes out from one direction on Radicet to begin with, because you take that back base as the 3rd, and the 4th, you know, only has 1 entry. So the Hellion Cyclones are going to do exactly that, leading up to potentially Kure's follow-up medevac drop to find a little bit more spice. Dark has once again chosen to go into Ling, Baneling, but speed is not done. And we are at 6 minutes, guys, but speed was just that late.
Yep. Definitely playing a little bit on the greedier side with all of that, but 1-1 is going to get fired on up. This is also normally the time when Dark against Spirit was oftentimes thinking, oh, I'm going to go for a fast Infestation Pit, but it's not going to be Infestation Pit. It's going to be a fast Spire coming out from Dark.
Oh, I love myself some classic Zerg versus Terran play. Ling, Baneling, Meter will always be the classic, even though Legacy of the Void has been a majority devoid of it, I suppose. I also love the idea of it on a large map where it's a lot about these, like, peripheral bases and not the contested bases on Radicet. So lovely idea. We'll see if it actually is effective. First, Dark has got to defend against a rather hefty push. Baneling speed nowhere near done, but that's why the Lings around was so important. And that was an effective cleanup for the Zerg.
Beautiful positioning there from Dark with his army as well, because he saw that Kure, of course, was going to do the standard thing. He was going to start backing up. And Dark anticipated it. He sent his Lings around, and he was looking to intercept at that location very early on. If you look back 10 seconds, those Lings were on a beeline path that far back. And just that decisiveness allowed him to get that nice surround there.
Yeah, and quite unfortunate for Kure, by the way. His supply is still, you know, it's doable, but that could have been so many more units still hovering around creep, right? And instead, it is not even full 2 medevacs going for the tiniest bits of damage. Kure knows that that was a mistake. He is going to be playing from behind from here on out, but if he can get to a 4-base setup and maxed out, that is going to be the great equalizer. He still might even have upgrades ahead, but I think it also is the fact that he does not know that it is Mutas. He has not picked up on this yet. I don't see any indication, and that's really going to change the tempo of this type of game where you think, well, I could always just be totally fine back at home, you know, Turtle Terran, let's go. But then suddenly Mutas are appearing and perhaps even getting into numbers of 20 or 30. We've seen that in Heart of the Swarm. That stuff is really hard to turtle against.
I think Mutas are one of those units that when they start to snowball, it feels almost hopeless to try and deal with them after they're already at a high enough count. And these Mutas are not necessarily at that count, but they are in still decent enough numbers with 11 of them hiding themselves as they go across the map. The Lings and Banelings going to try and deal with this little pressure play at the front line, but is Kure going to be ready from behind?
And no, absolutely not. He does not have any missile turrets in the...
Oh, he has one missile turret there.
Yeah, he actually does have missile turret. It is literally the one, though. I'm not even sure why he made it. Maybe he has played against Dark before where he has gone for Mutas, and they would go to a hanging base, as I like to call them, first and foremost. So that actually is It's literally perfect.
Yeah.
That is the one area that he had a missile turret and a quick response from the SCV pool, and now he just builds an extra missile turret in every base, and that will take care of the first wave of mutas, no problem.
In a sense, fully predicted, not only on the mutas, but also where the mutas were going to go. It's like you said, absolutely perfect defense there from Cure. Now, can he get a little bit of perfect offense here, as he has a single Widowmine left over, but oh, these Marines all getting surrounded there. The Widowmine's even getting picked off, the Medevac getting picked off, and the Widowmine's getting a handful more drones. It's something, but it feels like Cure's been taking a lot of beatings here.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, in the hypothetical I was going with, if you just turtle, you run around, chase the mutas, that's really annoying, but you can do it. And it was a question of whether Dark was going to recommit to the mutas. He is actually now. But then on the flip side, if the Terran still tries to hold on to some form of aggression, stay off that creep again, the mutas are going to ensure that there's a punish. If you do get this around, there's no pick up and leave like we've seen in so many other TVZs. And now we do again have Dark recommitting to the mutas. He's going to get a few more. They do get into high numbers. They are obnoxious. Missile turrets will not deal with them. You're going to try and hide around those 4 Widowmine plays, which sometimes pops off, sometimes doesn't. And yeah, you are going to be deterred from being on the map a little bit more. But I honestly think that's an okay thing. I really do believe that Cure in this game is probably destined to play more of a defensive, max out first and foremost, and then push when you have close to your 3-3.
Yeah, I think one of the solutions that Dark maybe has to exactly that kind of style here, though, is going to also be the Nidus Worm, where he can not only use the mutas to be mobile and try and harass or be annoying, but he can also just take advantage of the moment that Cure feels comfortable moving out, throw up Nidus Worms, and imagine a Nidus Worm comes up in one location, the mutas are harassing another, and you're trying to move out and you're in the middle of the map. That's going to be one of the most infuriating moments for Cure if that ends up happening.
I do wonder if Cure wants to go ahead and mine out his 3rd base and break down those rocks, and then take the gold. Kind of condenses your bases around a little more of like that triangle that we tell you for 3 bases, but then it'd be 5. Just a thought, because I've seen more Terran, or actually all the races, experiment with that idea. We'll look into that a little bit later. Cure might not still yet even be halfway on his 3-3, but he is confident that a push across the map is going to be very intimidating for a Zerg player to hold, and I think he's right. At the end of the day, Ling Bane Ling Muta really requires quite the perfect setup to actually go toe-to-toe with a properly I guess, proper composition of Terran. You know, good number of bio, Medivacs, and a couple of Thors to ensure the mutas can't just pick away.
Yeah, and there's a very good reason why the mutas are often, you know, associated with trying to buy time, is because the Zerg player needs to buy time and create openings for those Lings, Banelings, and mutas to find those big connections, to find those big opportunities. And so far, actually, I have to say, these mutas are actually doing a very nice job of forcing the army to just chase it around right now.
Yeah, classic play, really. Muta's great at harassing, great at buying some time, and they do occasionally get really big pickoffs, combined with that Nidus Worm that you were talking about, but this is something that Cure, I'm not sure he was aware of the Nidus Worm, I'm sure he's, you know, aware that it's a possibility, but he knew the rocks were being broken down, actually by Dark. Dark broke down the rocks. It just now Cure could even still mine out his own minerals if he wanted to play that game. He might even start to try and expand towards a particular direction, like the bottom right, to then push off that direction. As Radistad doesn't have too many contested bases, that's kind of what you got to do if you want to propel off a planetary. But he is not propelling off a planetary, he is just pushing, and Dark is going to go for the big surround.
Yeah, a lot of Widowmines are set up very defensively over here, but Dark is going to have no problem cleaning up the front line. Can he clean up the back line? The Marines are actually just in an all-out retreat right now. Mutas, Lings, and Banelings giving chase, and they are going to be able to find quite a few of these Marines. So much of the army supply right now is just medevacs. There's nothing actually for them to heal right now, though.
Yeah, that was a really, that didn't actually look like it was going to go that great, even if the Marines were there.
There are more medevacs than there are Marines right now.
Yes, that's actually a problem. But I love the drones. Dark wants to open up that other path, and I feel like for Cure, you got to actually almost accept it and then use it as an advantage. If you're going to continue expanding to the top left, which is typically the process, to be clear, that does open up an opportunity for the Zerg to do exactly what Dark is. You just don't usually have it. I love that he's so insistent on actually breaking down the rocks and then mining out the minerals.
I mean, it goes so well with even what he was doing in game number 1, where he was so good about continuously doing those little run-by attempts, continuously trying to find opportunities. Baneling's being morphed in over here. He still needs to finish mining out those minerals, but that drone is on its way. He has his own logo watchtower to even see that this has not quite been identified just yet. A couple of Marines are there, but are a couple of Marines really enough?
No, it is not. Here comes the Zerg Horde. Nidus Worm coming along with it as well. And where is Cure's army? It went to go deal with potential attack up to the north side. It is coming down now, and the reinforcements might eventually take care of this, but this is a successful 1-2 attack. The lack of planets at the top left will save the command center this time, but if mutas ever go over there, then they can take it out.
Yep, Mutas are already still finding somehow some good value trades over here. It really feels like Kira was just taking 3 punches all at the same time. How does Dark do it? He finds these opportunities where it feels like in the matter of just a handful of seconds, he hits at every single angle, and somehow Kira ends up not being really prepared for any of them.
I mean, I really hesitate to be like, I really think a pro gamer should do this, because they're much better than I am. But he's going to be pulled apart so much trying to defend this top left base, as we just saw there, even as Widowmine turning against them, where obviously you still have a problem dealing with being torn apart. That's what Zergs do best. But I feel like if you went for the bottom right, you know, you got some command centers blocking these 2 chokes over there, and then that's your 1 attack path you got to worry about for 4 bases. Move your army to the right side, then you have another, like a second choke point that you can also cover just with your push.
Yeah.
But that aside, we really are witnessing the dismantling of Cure. He has not been able to find a solid foothold in this game.
No, absolutely. Dark has just truly held the momentum for the entirety of this game, or at least a vast majority of it. He is continuing to just stay at a maxed out supply as he makes 50 or 60 lings at a time, adding on 7 corruptors, a very reasonable count of corruptors to complement a couple of the ultras that are going to be coming on out. And he will be able to continuously just do what Zerg does best, swarm his opponent down, who has truly just not been maxed out, I want to say, for at least 4 or 5 minutes at this point.
Even the last time he was maxed out, it hardly looked like it when the battle happened, right? It was a disjointed battle, and it was just before 3-3 finished as well. It was not what you wanted as a Terran player. Kira absolutely has a second chance, third chance, whatever you want to call it, in this game, to stabilize, to get his bases up, and to have that really great Terran army, the one that the Zerg players have to throw wave after wave of aggression at. But it's such a struggle for Kira to even get to that maxed out point.
Yeah. Well, the missile turret is going to act as a wallet over there for the mineral line, but it's not there that he has to worry about. The Lings, Banelings, Corruptors, and Ultras are all on the north side, and I actually really love the walling in over here for Kira. It's a great solution to the fact that a vast majority of this army and the threat there for Dark is going to be a lot of those ground units that try and run straight on through, and if they have to run through choke points, this is where maybe Kira can find those miraculous engagements. The Banelings, they simply just do not care. They're going to try and run in.
That might be a little overzealous, but Dark has got the bank to do this, even if it was not very good. And at the end of the day, it's pretty decent. A lot of SAVs go down, a lot of bio goes down, but the planetary will hold, and the ghost for the most part did live, which is kind of the thing that Terran looks at the end of one of those fights. So like, my supply looks crappy, but hey, I got a planetary and I got my ghost, so I still have a chance. And that is where we're at. He still has a chance. But Dark is just 1 remax away from straight up taking Kira out of this game.
Yeah, and I think that Kira is a very capable Terran player. Clearly, he's already outperformed Maru in this particular event, but this is one of those situations where exactly what you were talking about before, if this was Maru in Kira's situation, I'd be saying, oh no, a lot of the value units survived. Exactly what you were talking about. We've seen comebacks from this exact same kind of situation happen before for the Terran player. It will have to be a comeback from this point, as the supplies truly do not lie in this situation. But Cure still does have a shot in this game.
Yeah, I'm a believer of the Turtle Terran, but Dark is just... The particular point here is that Cure cannot get this base up, but he has to try. And that is the vulnerable aspect here. If he was behind 3 planetaries and just content back on a choke, that is something different. But now the planetary is finally also going to be broken. And while Dark Supply also does dip down in maybe one of the worst trades in this game, he has the bank to be okay with it.
Now, that's absolutely true. As we already see the Remax 124 Zerglings in production. Always great, and I hope someone screenshots 130. Yes.
No. Okay, that's a tap out, but let's just go ahead and pretend Dark did not take Cure's gold base. Oh.
Let's hope that was a true tap out and not a rewind to look at the replay, see the minimap, and think, oh, this guy.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, he was totally right for it. He had so much momentum in that game. At the end of the day, I do think that it was a lot of the map router set really causing some complications, but in the late game. And the problem was also that we had to kind of be forced to the late game, not because of the openers, which are going to take advantage of a macro map. No, because Cure's aggression with his first move out, this one in particular, even his second move out, even his third move out, every single time he moved out, he was demolished. That really only kind of leads to one thing, which is the Terran going, oh, guess I got a turtle. and then trying to do so on a map where you don't have those contested bases, the one where you leapfrog your planetary forward and then protect it and attack from it, it just is so difficult for a Terran to really get the bases. Then they get spread out, and then, especially when you open up those mineral patches, the Zerg just throws every possible attack at you from the right, from the left, from the Nidus Worm in the main base. The Remax are far instant for a Zerg player, and it's just so difficult to play it out here.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with your analysis, and I really do think that Dark played the map really, really well in relation to how Cure tried to play the map. And I guess the one kind of bright side of looking at it that way for Cure is that that is going to just be that map, and now it is done, and we don't see it for the rest of the series. The next map is going to be Alcyon or Alcyone, however you want to pronounce it, in the many, many ways we can say it. But that is going to be Cure's final stand. He has to win 3 games in a row against not just a player who's already gone up 2-0 against them, but it's been 2-0 with only a few real moments where I want to say Dark didn't look pretty good.
He's snowballing, right?
Yeah.
The first game was a little questionable, was almost maybe even a Cure victory, actually, and then Dark was like, nope, you know, I'm Dark, I'm going to do it. The second game was a demolishing. Cure actually really had no shot, even when I think, you know, things could have gone better. Everything went wrong for Cure. Let's see if things can turn around on game number 3, or if this guy will get the 3-0 he's looking for. In the top right, as the Red Zerg for DKZ Gaming, he is Dark.
And down here in the bottom left-hand side of the map, the blue Terran player, ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for this guy. He needs your energy to try and mount a comeback in this series from Team Liquid. He is Cure. Talked about it before at the beginning of this series, Zombie Grub, how close Cure has come to getting these big events. He's made these deep runs. He's made it to these kind of points before, but he now has to try and 3-0 Dark to stay alive in the series, to keep that hope and dream alive that he can win one of these big events here.
Yeah, and this would also be like his first map in a while against Dark, too. Last time they faced, it was a 3-0 for Dark. Time before that, it was a 4-0. Time before that, it was Dark 2-1, to be fair, but Dark's just been winning against Cure more and more convincingly as time has gone on. We do have Cure really changing things up. I loved his build in game number 1, thought it was effective, didn't work out. Game number 2 made sense for the map 100%. Game 3 on the ropes here. He's not just going for the forward 2 racks, he's adding on the 3rd. He's looking to snowball, and most probably looking to take advantage of Dark's later speed.
Yeah, Dark has actually been foregoing that in a lot of his TDZs, it seems like, and he really has shown that he's sometimes willing to play a little bit greedier here. So how is this going to pan on out? Overlord is going to come on forward. He's going to see 2 barracks, the full wall over there. It does not reveal that 3rd barracks you were talking about, and when actually Dark realizes what he's up against is going to heavily impact how many units he's actually making to respect this.
You do see the lack of command center if you're courageous with your Overlord. Some Zergs aren't. They're scared of a Marine popping out instead of Reapers, so they will keep that Overlord back. But Dark, he is certainly not scared. That is not one word to use for Dark. He puts the Overlord right into the natural. He sees the lack of command center. There is a possibility there's a mind game and the command center's on the high ground, but there's also a real strong possibility it is actually a 3rd Rax, and that's exactly what it is. Dark still doesn't have speed started up here. He is, in fact, not going to have it. I think he's already taken off a couple of drones from gas. Yeah, he's got to be 100%.
Yeah, and he's just making more drones, Zombie Grub. He's just continuing to make drones.
Yes. Yes, he is. That seems, you know, potentially difficult the more that Reapers appear here.
Yeah, I'm like, Zombie Grub, am I wrong about this? But if your opponent is making a lot of units, I feel like this is going to get really scary if you're making a lot of workers.
Yeah, I mean, still, at the end of the day, I'd say the most important thing as far as not just getting bopped by this build is ensuring that your queens survive. If you lose one queen because you missed micro or didn't realize the Reaper was coming as fast, that snowballs really quickly. But this is the real issue with not having particularly fast speed. Queens on creep, slow lings on creep, drones being pulled away is one thing. Trying to defend your building 3rd hatch, it just doesn't happen. I mean, sometimes this 3rd hatch even dies to the 4th and 5th Reaper from a 2 racks, much less the 3 racks continuing to produce Reapers.
Yeah, so Dark is just going to take the loss, and he has to cancel that base, loses the drone, and says, well, at least I'll have an okay-ish drone count because I've just been continuing to make workers throughout all this. And you were talking about that queen count being very important. The Reapers still not in such high numbers that they feel confident in actually pushing even against the 3 queens, although I'm not gonna lie, with Kira's micro, I feel like he could actually try and pull something out over there with some nice Reaper grenades as well. You have to be a little bit cautious there as Dark.
Yeah, the speed could be finishing at any second. As far as Kira's aware, we know it's 2 seconds away, so he has to be very careful of being surrounded. But honestly, with this many Reapers, if Dark makes enough Lings to get this around and get the kill, that's actually still kind of a problem for the Zerg who built so many Lings. They weren't building drones. So basically, Kira is pretty confident that even if there were enough Lings, he'd skedaddle, he'd get out of there, he'd throw the grenades, and the Reapers would still be effective enough, or that they actually will go ahead and have the map control and can even posture themselves as a potential secondary attack timed up with the Medivacs.
That is absolutely true, and we do see a funny little side effect, of course, of the spawn locations there, as Kira's Tech Lab is a little bit more exposed if Dark decided to try and take advantage of that, but Queen's gonna try and engage against these Reapers, and the Lings are on the other side of the map. I believe that Kira actually just saw that with his Marines at his front line, so he can actually do that a little bit safer, knowing that he's not just immediately gonna get surrounded.
Another highlight for Reapers on this map is what we're seeing exactly here. Dark has to break down his rocks in the middle of his gold to actually get on the right side of the map. So here figuring that the Reapers have some amount of time to escape, but Dark did break down the rocks. Dark is looking to intercept, and Dark absolutely will. Cure, though, quick to respond. Nice little juke right there, throwing down the grenades and keeping a lot of his Reapers alive. So close being able to hop up. Did he only lose one Reaper there?
One Reaper, that's all he loses. Incredible mind games with the micro there, and Kira comes out on top.
Dang, nicely done. Very important that Kira was watching his Reapers, though. Like, that's like the first thing, right? Is that he didn't just go, up, back home, boys. Like,
it's supposed to be the safe zone. I really wouldn't blame any player for thinking, I'm safe here. I don't need to watch them right now.
Exactly, but the juke was excellent as well. And now, as I was saying, we do have the Reapers paired up with the Medivacs and Marines. They could try and dive into the main and be a secondary attack, or they could actually straight up help on the main. You know, they're still very effective against Lings with the Marines. They'll soak a couple of Banelings, and the grenades, we've seen a couple of times grenades be effective, popping those Banelings all over the place so that the Marines can even focus them down faster and more precisely.
Yeah, and remember, I mean, this is the kind of game where sometimes you'll see these sort of pushes happen before Baneling speed is about to finish. This is the game where the lair only just now finished on up, and the Baneling-ness is done, but there is not even Baneling speed started just yet. So even the micro potential there from the Reapers to continue to kite around and try and use those grenades like you were talking about to throw those Banelings all out and about can be extremely annoying and extremely effective here.
Kira's really played an excellent control game here. The 3-rack start forces the Zerg to respond to that. Then the 2-base follow-up again, forcing the Zerg to respond to that. It does mean that he is going to be not as well set up macro-wise, especially compared to the last 2 games. His third CC isn't even halfway done. He doesn't have double engineering bay, although he is now grabbing +1 armor. It is a delay on the economy, but the idea is that if the Zerg player has to respect this, then they're also going to be suppressed to a certain amount, and it's possible they don't even respect it enough and they just die.
Yep, drag them down with you rather than both of you rising to the occasion or to the fight. But like you said, it is still going to mean that Kira has to invest in some of that stuff just a little bit later on, but he is still getting there, just again a little bit slower, and has that opportunity to put on those little pressure plays. So far, has not been able to find those openings though. Dark has been on top of it. He's been maneuvering his queens around. Is maybe going to lose a couple of Banelings that are morphing in over here, as that's actually a very cute little position for those Reapers to find.
It really is, and the Reapers are helping again. Big Ling run by from Dark is going to try and enter into the natural. Not going to happen, however. He does have Banelings thing forming off to the left too, but that's a lot of bio on Dark's front lines before he has his hatchery done, so he will be able to cancel that. But I don't know if he can contest this position. That potential run-by is going to turn into a bit of a surround that has now been tipped off to Cure, so he's going to be extra wary of that.
Has 3 medevacs, so can pick up some of these units if he does decide he has to evacuate on out of there. Even has 2 siege tanks that have joined the fray. Those siege tanks are going to get loaded into the medevac and look for an opportunity to siege up behind the mineral line, which is going to be extremely annoying, even going to be in range of one of these gas geysers. So it's going to put a little bit of a time pressure here for Dark.
Yeah, Dark is, you know, he's trying to figure things out, and he does have some time thanks to the Queens being so tanky. But this Baneling run-by that he's got set up here really does have to do some damage or big distraction. A tank is sieged up to help at least guard against the potential, so I don't know what Dark is thinking now his extractors are going down, his evolution chamber could be in trouble too, and he just can't get a great angle against this push point.
Yeah, I wonder if he's waiting for reinforcements to move out from the natural over to the third or something before he goes into the run-by, because yeah, he has to do something, and I wouldn't even hate the idea of using the run-by to distract while also trying to go for the breakout, just because it forces Micro on both fronts or something, but he just hasn't been able to find opportunity on either end just yet. The Ling's finally forced to actually disengage against these Marines, because otherwise the Evo Chamber is getting so low on hit points, he's going to lose +2 weapons.
Yeah, 100%. That was only halfway done. I think that's impossible to card. He might have been able to get a second or third, I suppose, Evolution Chamber up to get it again, but not going to happen. Also, Cure, with more army being produced, of course, finally has enough to feel comfortable to send 2 medevacs across the map. I say comfortable enough because that means he's going to have less back at home against the potential Ling Baneling run by, which finally goes for the throat. Third CC is taken down temporarily. 14 SCVs dead for that one, but overall, Cure chose a good moment to go for the drop as well. He's got 2-pronged attack going on. That 4th base of Dark is under trouble. His queens are in trouble, and Cure is going to be able to recover from a 14 SCV loss.
No, he absolutely will. He is finding the equalizing damage over here. For whatever damage Dark has been able to do to him, Cure has been able to continue to find damage, but also still keep his solidified pressure play on that natural expansion, denying the gas guys and denying any drones that get a little bit too far forward toward those minerals.
Dark has had to just live with this bothersome, like, tumor on the left side, you know? Yeah, it's like, this is just my life now. But he has been trying to do what I think he does very well in these games to make some of these comebacks happen, which is stay cool, calm, and collected, and not give up on trying to say something in return. He doesn't just go meek and milquetoast and like, okay, you do whatever you want. He always tries to get a jab in, and then as we see in a couple of his games, it works out. The Terran player is distracted or did underestimate his ability to gamble. You know, more of the army on the opposite side, where most of the Zergs would be, again, very scared to do that. So Dark is doing what he needs to do, but it is still a troublesome place for the Zerg.
It absolutely is. Now, a couple more Marines are going to try and find little bits and pieces of damage, even maybe snipe out a creep tumor or something over here. Dark is actually going to be forced to pull back a lot of his army, but is he pulling it back to the right location? Yes, he's going to the bottom right-hand side, and he's going to try and collapse in on this Bioforce. Widow Mines are eventually going to go off. Takes a while, but they do eventually go off, and Dark does manage to stay alive there, and he's stayed alive long enough that his +2 melee is going to finish up, which nearly ties up the upgrade.
He does, that's true. 3-3 starts up, lickety split for Cure as he's now focused majorly on the right side. I believe we had another surround. Yep, exactly, that Cure has to pick up from. But Cure's really chosen to dedicate, I think, to a different attack, right? He left his tanks up to the top left, and that is annoying, but Dark has clearly also just been like, you know what? I'm fine with that. I took my gases elsewhere. He actually doesn't even need that many gases, apparently. Still very low on that one. But Dark has had a troublesome game from minute 1, and now push has come to shove. Cure's army supply 30 above his opponent, with the upgrade lead now no longer in effect, but the supply and the quality of supply from the Terran is intimidating.
This is going to be the big moment. If Dark can hold on over here, he's going to have a much more solid chance for the rest of this game. He's got his Hydras coming on out. He's got a bunch of these upgrades coming on out that are going to help him in a big fight. But Cure is at his front door. He is stalling out for a little bit as he looks like he's setting up a 4th base location. Apparently that Shank never evacuated on out, didn't get the evacuation notice. Will eventually get evacuated out to heaven.
Boys?
Boys? What?
Tank Sarah Kerrigan. Anyway, we do have an attack on the right side that Cure is continuing to reinforce. This is the point at which he wants to make the battle happen, of course, in his favor. Dark has added on Hydras. He's trying to wait for some of these better upgrades, too, including the Hydra upgrades. Only has the range, not the speed. But apparently, this is the moment to go. Trying to get the big surround, even off of creep. The Widow Mine's popping off, but not effectively enough for the Terran, who is forced to evacuate.
And that was a massive fight there for Dark in a lot of ways, but the army supply is still looking pretty high there for Cure. How much of that is just in production? It looks like there's still a fair bit on this bottom right-hand side, and they may be able to find one of the hatcheries. An easy pickoff here for Cure.
Yeah, absolutely. No contest, but that's the decisions that Dark is making, the wise decisions that he's making. Yep, gonna go ahead and let that one go. Try and get at least some more creep spread going, because that has been a sore point. Not a lot of creep to work with around his bases, which is why Cure is continuing to push this issue. Dark taking the engagement once again, but this is far worse. No surrounds possible.
Cure is just looking a little bit too strong with his army now. He's dropping in on the other location. It looks like he's going to be able to push on through. The Baneling count is not high enough, and Cure puts one on the board.
In a masterful display of TVZ. From start to finish, his plan worked out. No big mistake on the surround potential either, which had happened in the second game. That was the cure we love to see. And Dark, at the end of the day, was thrown off with the opener, was thrown off with the consistent aggression, and was thrown off with the tank position.
Really, really great start there for game number 3 on Cure's side, and he definitely needed that W. If he can go into this next game and secure a similar-ish kind of momentum, I really feel good about Cure's chances. I mean, I think this is the area where he and many other Terran players just tend to excel, is when they can control the pacing of the game. It's just hard to recreate that every single time.
Yeah, of course, but this is the proof that he's not going to let things snowball. Dark had a great, comeback in the first game, I would still call it, and then he demolished him in the second game. So that's really concerning. You start to wonder, is this the trend? Is Cure going to 2-racks and get bopped in the third game, and okay, 3-0 on to the next one? No, Cure has his most powerful game to date based off of the aggression against Dark, and now he has that opening again. He can get the confidence again. He can say, yeah, you know what, that 3CC was working. I just kind of did this or that wrong. And yeah, this aggression can work, so maybe I want to do that again. Cure should be just as confident coming into this game 4 as he was in game 1. And hopefully with that confidence, he can go ahead and even it up.
Yeah, and he is going to need to, because his opponent right now has a hard lead as we head on to hard lead. We're going to be starting down in the bottom right-hand side of the map on top of the red Zerg player still sitting at match point. He is DKZ's Dark.
And if you still want this team, Liquid Terran, to make it to the finals, give him your energy. He is Cure!
Hearing that crowd roar, they really want that Christmas present of a potential Team Liquid versus Team Liquid finals. If in the next match, Clem can defeat Serral, he could have 2 Team Liquid boys, a guaranteed Liquid victory. But before that happens, before Clem even comes onto the stage, Cure still needs to figure out what his game plan is going to be here in game number 4.
And that game plan is back to the confidence of the macro game. Command Center coming out first, and Dark is just going for the typical hatch gas pool. So I am happy to see it. Cure is an established veteran of the scene. Of course, both of them are playing for a decade plus at this point, I believe. So, that's not usually something you have to worry about being phased coming into the round of 4, but it's always a concern. We do see even the best players in the world occasionally just have a mental break, but not for these players.
Oh, absolutely. And I think especially Dark is just one of those players. I think that's probably one of the things I love the most about watching him is he just has that swagger, he has that confidence, and you see it in the interviews, you see it in his answers for some of the random little tidbits and graphics and stuff that we've displayed. He really is one of those players that he doesn't just go into the semifinals and says, okay, well, I'm getting a little bit nervous, can I really win? No, he moves in and he says, I am going to win not just this semifinals. I'm not going to get to the finals and be happy. I'm going to win this event. That is what success means to me.
Yeah, Dark swagger is unbelievable. He's actually the coolest guy.
Yeah, I genuinely think that Dark is he's won me over with his swagger. Yeah, I became a fan of him with just his swagger. Even sometimes when he would do metagame styles and stuff at certain points in time in certain years, I'm just like, man, Dark, I really don't enjoy watching this, but goddamn, do I enjoy watching you.
Talking some Brooklyn Infester.
We're not going to talk about what the composition was. I'm not gonna add him like that because I'm enjoying the heck out of his compositions and his gameplay. This particular series, I think that's actually been so much fun also, is that not only looking at this series in particular with the past 3 games, but even his series versus Spirit, they look so different. There's so much variety that Dark brings to the table.
Absolutely. Cure is going for that 3CC barracks setup. So again, one of the greediest things you can do. Without that factory, it's the catch-all defensive structure. It's got the Hellions against Lings, got the Cyclones and Tanks against Roaches. It's really nice. But if you think your opponent's not going to cheese you, which is quite the call against Dark, but I guess he's not so much cheesy as he is very aggressive, then you can get away with this. Expedite to the barracks play and get there on the best economy possible. Dark will eventually pick up on this. Speed kicks in as he gets some Lings into the natural. He's going to see no Hellions. That's already a good sign. And he's actually going to even see, for instance, the Fly Depot count on the front kind of really points to a 3rd CC, which he's bothered by that one supply depot. He's going to get that one.
He's like, you're not allowed to start walling this early. And I mean, even just actually a lot of the lost mining time, the SCVs didn't just go straight over to the main base and say, well, I guess we'll just oversaturate over there. No, they actually have been continuously pulled against a lot of these links. And wow, Dark is just going to try and go for it. He's trying to start step his links forward. I think he maybe got, what was that, 2 Marines in the end and an SCV. For 10 links, how do you feel about that with the supply depot, I guess?
Yeah, plus the delayed mining time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a 3cc, and I think that did give him a successful scout. So he should know it's 3cc, and he should know that it's Marine production, because, again, a factory unit would have popped out by now. So it is most likely then 3 racks. Although, I guess it could be a 2-1-1 follow-up, but it's these little things that he's probably also trying to read still as the Lings continue to bother. If it's a 3 racks, then we're talking about a much later medevac push, but we're talking about a much faster, perhaps, bio push on the ground, which Terrans will threaten the Zerg with when they think they can. Now, I'm not sure this is the game in which Cure wants to gamble kind of with that, but I think just the presence of this build, you know, is going to force the Zerg to take it seriously, and Dark has opted for finally a Roach Warren.
Yep, and this is really interesting because this was also what he was doing in most of the games against Spirit. Again, I keep bringing up that series versus Spirit because that is the ZVT he played during this event, the most recent ZVT that we can really witness of Dark. And he was oftentimes going up against Spirit, who was looking for Hellion Banshee openings and stuff. But how is he actually going to decide to invest in these Roaches? He makes 7 right now, 8?
I'm pretty blind. He actually has been in the knowledge this entire time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There's an overlord on the backside.
All right.
So he doesn't even need these little twists and turns. I think he was still looking for the starport timing because he sent his other overlord in. It's not too often I'd say pro gamers have 2 overlords on the other side of the map, but Dark does in this one. So one in the back guarantees that scout. One at the left just guarantees any other scout he might need. But the Ling still would have really wanted to be very cautious about the Ling move out timing. But it is really good that Dark has that full information, because even that single engineering behind the front line, if there was no Overlord scouting, might have made him wonder if tanks were being hidden and it was like a 2-base push, which, yeah, again, with the Overlord in the main, that's not the issue. So he knows exactly what he's up against, and he knows that Cure is going to, you know, not really push with these Marines so much as hope to get a reaction from him, stop building drones, start building army. But at this point, Dark might want to be doing it anyway. He's already at 66 drones on 3 bases. He's got 1-1 on the way, and Dark is entirely capable of going for a 1-1 Roach all in if you think it's going to work. And just waiting for his next wave of units.
Yeah, I mean, he already did go for the patented 6 Overlords all at once. I know that these Roaches are inflated in supply kind of moves, as he went from, I think, 80 supply to 150 or 146, I should say. As, yeah, it's just pure Roaches coming on out. Lings are going to kind of poke on forward and force a stim out from some Marines. Just keep an eye out on that army. Keep an eye out and make sure, okay, you're not doing any kind of weird push-outs or anything. You're not trying to do anything here. Cool, because I'm making a lot of army right now.
He also wants to see if it's tank production and how fast and how many tanks there are. If you go immediately into tanks, especially with a more standard build where that factory comes out a bit faster, then you're already really well set up against the 1-1 Roach all in. You still got to do the right things, of course, but you're better set up than if you went right into Woodham Mines, for instance.
Does this medevac see any of the Roaches moving across the map?
No, it does not. This is a problem. Cure, I'm not sure he's going to have enough back at home, and when the actual 1-1 Roach push comes, so he's really got to scout out that this is Dark's intention.
Well, some of the Roaches that were already, I believe, witnessed earlier as well, like maybe a few less Roaches than that, are spotted over there in the main base. I wonder if he's going to be thinking, like, did you actually position all of your Roaches in the main? Surely you must have a few more, but how many more do you have? I don't see any, you know, is this a situation where you can really reactively start producing a particular kind of unit like Sea Shanks or something, knowing that Roaches are coming?
You definitely want to swap over into tanks if you haven't already. Cure has been building them. They just really haven't been for a very long time. Only 2 of them out, but I think he did pick up on the fact that Roaches were going to come across the map. At least everything is prepared. The tanks are siege, the Marines are there to block, and the SCVs were ready to do their duty. They got pulled to the front lines, and they're going to pull back as soon as they realize they did enough. But the supply is still incredibly scary. We know it's quantity versus quality, but we know that Dark could also get a big surround at a really opportune moment. Cure wanted to go for the Ravagers, but was that right move?
He is going to lose so many of these Marines. The Sea Shank barely participating in the fight until finally a couple of Roaches go in to snipe it on off. This 3rd command center is going to have to abandon ship. 14 workers going down, and Dark, he is climbing up in supply. It's not just inflated Roach supply now. It is because Cure is losing so very much.
I think going after the Ravagers wasn't the right move at the end of the day. It's a really hard call to make because even if the Army was there to properly defend with the SCV pull, with the tank firing, it could still have been a quantity issue. Kira's going to try and hold on for as long as possible because he is on 4 command centers. He can take a bit of a bruising here and still recover in the overall game, especially if Dark then gets overconfident, tries to get a surround, fails, and the quality of the Terran army works. But Kira has been pushed back. That wasn't the defense he still wanted. Even though he made a last-minute defense out of this, ideally, I think he would have had even like a couple of bunkers to further delay. He would have had a 3rd tank, obviously positioned better if you could have bought some more time. And it is a fact that Kira is in a very uncomfortable position.
Yeah, Roaches and Ravagers going to poke on 4, but I actually want to highlight our wonderful, incredible observers did catch a scan that Kira did on the 3rd base location, I think, of Dark. And I think that's just checking to see, like, how committed are you to this? Have you already started transitioning out? Do I still have an opportunity to bounce back exactly like you were talking about? Because Kira, if you can somehow manage to hold out just a little bit longer, if Dark takes any kind of bad engagement or something, there still is very much so a shot here for Kira.
Unfortunately, it looks like Kira was reacting to the information as he was getting his upgrades. No armor is done for him, but +2 attack ace. He's got the high ground tank working, a tank on the low ground, also getting tons of shots. The SCVs are being pulled in here as the Marines try and make their stand against the entirety of Dark's Roach Ravager army. The 2nd tank is eventually going to go down, but it got so many shots off. There still might be some hope as Kira also has a drop, trying to decimate Dark's economy, but Dark still has the supply. He still has Kira choked up in his natural, and he's still out for blood.
Up 80 supplied. He is cleaning up back at home. The medevac gets sniped off. There's no sustainability to this push-in anymore. Whereas Dark is continuing to be so obnoxious with these corrosive biles, forcing these medevacs back, even picking some of them up. Dark smells the grand finals. It's in his reach. This Grinch is ready to steal Christmas away from Cure, and he is finally going to get cleaned up on that other side of the map as well.
No one's coming in here to melt his heart, unfortunately. Dark knows that he is going to be the victor. It is a matter of time. There's no reason for Dark to pull away, to allow Kira the chance to get his 3rd back on location, and to even double expand with that 4th that's been hanging in the air forever. Kira does not want to tap out. It is his last life in this tournament, but the supplies are telling the tale, and he is going to tap out. Dark, with a 3-1 victory, will go on to the grand finals.